Hey guys, it's the Metal 5, and initially I wasn't going to dedicate an entire video to this subject, but this is something that has been bothering me since I first saw it, which has been aching at me ever since. So, I just feel like I really need to get this off my chest so I don't drive myself insane. Back in February, Doodletones made a commentary on my response to WatchMojo's Yu-Gi-Oh! Vs. Pokemon video. And while for the most part I think it's a perfectly fine video, since I think she does bring up some fair points, there was one thing about the video that I found issue with that I've been a bit nervous in expressing. That being that at a few points within the video she, to be frank, twists my words. I don't think she does this intentionally, but it's still something that occurs, and twisting people's words, whether it be intentional or not, is a huge pet peeve of mine. So, I personally just want to take time to address these moments and state what I actually said, since it creates a false impression of some of my arguments in that response, in which the comment section is full of people talking shit about me behind my back, which partially influenced why this bothers me so much. But one thing I need to address is that I'm only showing and talking about the parts of the video that bother me, so what I say here doesn't reflect my view of the video as a whole. Have you ever heard of the word overrated? I'm not saying the Pokemon is overrated or anything, but there is a clear concept that being iconic doesn't necessarily make you good.
So wait, to be overrated means you must be bad? I'm sorry, in what world is this the case?
I'm not trying to sound condescending here, but I never said that being overrated makes you bad. I said that being iconic doesn't necessarily make you good. Keyword being necessarily, meaning that you can still be popular and good. It's just that popularity shouldn't be used as a reflection of something's quality. For example, Sword Art Online is a popular anime, but a lot of people say it's terrible. Plus, the definition of overrated is something having a higher opinion or recognition than it deserves. Being bad is not mentioned at all in there, so along with the fact that I never said what you're claiming I said, shows that it wasn't the case. Furthermore, I myself hate it when people use the term overrated to mean something is bad, and in my response to Egoraptor's Zelda sequelitis, I even stated that while I love Ocarina of Time, I do think it's overrated. Similarly to your analogy with Frozen on how you like the movie, but think it's overrated. So, while I know you're probably unaware of that, this partially bothers me because you end up making me out to be like the people I don't like, as well as educating me on how overrated doesn't mean bad when I already knew that, and feel passionate about that subject. Also, previously I'd been educated on how character design works, when, as a person who is commonly being described as creative, I have come up with tons of character designs myself, so I already knew how it works. So with this doing a similar thing of treat me like I don't know something when I do, further adds to why this admittedly annoys me. Again, I know you were unaware of that, but it still bothers me nonetheless. When I was a kid, I didn't know Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a Japanese thing, so I wasn't aware of this censorship until I got older, but when I found out, I thought, this is fucking stupid. Granted, I still have a soft spot for the English dub because it's what I grew up with, but it's still stupid in my opinion.
So it's stupid because you grew up.
You serious?
I'll just apologize in advance for how annoyed I'm gonna get here, since this is the part of the video that bothers me the most. I never said, in any way, shape, or form, that the English dub of Yu-Gi-Oh! Was stupid because I grew up. I'm not trying to call you stupid here, but I honestly have no idea how you came to that conclusion, since what I said in the video states otherwise. I said that when I was a kid, I didn't know about all of the censorship in the English dub of Yu-Gi-Oh! Since I was unaware that Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a Japanese thing at the time. But when I got older and started to get back into Yu-Gi-Oh!, I found out about the censorship because of various YouTube videos and because of Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, which makes fun of the censorship at various points. And my immediate reaction to finding this out was, this censorship is fucking stupid. But regardless, I still have a soft spot for the English dub despite its problems because I grew up with it. Essentially, nostalgia bias. What I said was the complete opposite of what you're claiming I said. Me growing up was related to me liking the English dub, while finding the censorship stupid was my initial reaction to discovering it. Growing up never played a single part as to why I found it stupid, and even if I did say that, it wouldn't make any sense because I didn't know about the censorship when growing up. When I watched Yu-Gi-Oh! As a kid, my thoughts on it never changed. I always thought it was cool. My thoughts on Yu-Gi-Oh! Only changed when I started to get embarrassed about how obsessed I was with the series after GX ended, partially because I didn't know about 5Ds and the other series at the time. Of course, your opinion on something can change when you get older, like how I hate a lot of movies that I liked as a kid, but I'm never going to use growing up as the reason for why something's dumb. So, I never said Yu-Gi-Oh! Was stupid because I grew up, and I honestly have no idea how you misinterpreted my sentence in that fashion. Rage mode switched off. However, the same can't be said for the final round being the impact, or to be more accurate, which series is more famous. This is how Pokemon wins in the end, and again, like I said before, just because something is more iconic doesn't mean it's better.
Oh my god, this time I know you're being mentally impaired. They are legit looking at which is more popular, most well-known, and more iconic. Them saying Pokemon is more iconic is the fucking point. That's how a round called the impacts work. And are you honestly going to try to argue the major impact Pokemon has had on the world? Fine. Proceed.
With this part about me talking about the impact, I feel that you preemptively argue against my point here, since later on in the video, I state that not only my issue with the last round being the impact, being that saying Pokemon is better than Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's more popular is dumb, but also because in this segment, I state that I think the final round should have been something else to make it more fair, with me using examples of the manga and the characters. And that's why I find these kind of debates dumb. Like with the Overwatch versus TF2 debate I mentioned in the previous response, it really is just up to personal preference in the end, and by believing that if you like one series, then you automatically hate the other for some reason.
No, that's not what either video was built on. Death Battle was inconsistent, sure, but as far as what they bring up, they aren't biased. With Watch Mojo, you literally have pointed out in this video alone that they had Yu-Gi-Oh! Win not 1, but 2 rounds out of 5. And 2 of the times Yu-Gi-Oh! Didn't win is because that they were looking at how iconic either series were, and Pokemon was just going to be on top no matter what.
Again, I don't mean to come off as condescending here, but you didn't listen to what I said here. If you watched my response to the Tracer vs. Scout episode of Death Battle, then you would know that this is what I said about the Overwatch vs. TF2 debate. But before I get to the reasoning, I just want to address one thing. I'm not going to talk about the whole Overwatch versus Team Fortress 2 debate that this battle was kind of inspired by, since it has nothing to do with the results, and honestly, it's a really stupid debate in my opinion. It had nothing to do with the death battle other than just where the idea of pitting Tracer against Scout came from, and I never said death battle was biased. Admittedly, this part comes across as if you just looked at what my previous response video was, and just assumed what I said in it rather than watching it. So, when I said, like with the Overwatch vs. TF2 debate I mentioned in the previous video, I was saying, like with the Overwatch vs. TF2 debate, which I briefly mentioned in the previous video, and then compared it to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Vs. Pokemon debate to explain why I think they're both stupid. I was talking about these debates in general, and not specifically what either video I was responding to talked about. Especially since this was in the conclusion of my video, where I mentioned how I felt that deciding which series was better was purely up to personal opinion, so to try and factually do this was my biggest issue with Watch Mojo's video.
Metal, my issue with this video is you didn't really seem to bring up anything particularly relevant to the conversation.
I don't have any issue with this, simply because it was never my intention to add to the debate since it would go completely against my video. My whole point was that while I personally agreed with the winners of some of the rounds, the keyword was personally, meaning that in the grand scheme of things, the winner could be completely opposite depending on other people's views, along with me feeling that Watch Mojo's reasoning for why either series won their respective rounds was either poor due to not looking at the full picture, or it was entirely based on popularity, in which I think popularity shouldn't be used to say why one series is factually better than another. My only other personal gripe with this video is Doodle's counter-argument to me using Dark Magician Girl.
There's a fine line between cute and fat material. The difference is you won't go to jail for looking at fat material in that way.
I've never seen anybody describe Dark Magician Girl as fap material, and I've never even heard that term before. When looking at Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos on YouTube, I've seen Yu-Gi-Tubers mention Dark Magician Girl being cute or hot, but not fap material. So as far as I'm aware, I feel like you're in the minority when you're saying this. I mean, there's even a top 10 video of Dark Magician Girl cute moments. And when I saw Watch Mojo's video for the very first time, in the comments I saw, believe it or not, Manga Kamen, who commented something along the lines of, Yu-Gi-Oh! Monsters aren't cute, Dark Magician Girl? Which was my main inspiration for using her as the example. And to further cement Dark Magician Girl being cute, even the anime has acknowledged this, not only with the moments seen in that top 10, but also because in GX, Cyrus has a crush on Dark Magician Girl. Konami knew the fan reaction to her. Plus, when I talked about Dark Magician Girl, I said this. Some people even have her as their waifu, which I always thought was a bit weird because, you know, she's a fucking card! And part of having a character as your waifu is that you can't jerk off to them. So if Dark Magician Girl was fap material, then that would defeat the point. And it's not even like Dark Magician Girl is designed in a way to be overly sexual, seeing as how her outfit isn't as revealing compared to many famous examples of fictional characters with sex appeal. I personally think that fap material would only really apply to hentai games, like those weird Sakura games where all the female characters are pretty much just there for you to jerk off to. And now that I've expressed all my personal issues with this video, I'm gonna take these Sakura images elsewhere for, educational purposes.